Choose you this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. All has been going well until last week I got a text message at 3 o'clock in the morning telling me I had to go as soon as my rent was up. It was from Louis the Lunatic Landlord, and I wonder if it was in retaliation because I had fixed his mom's plumbing and air conditioning earlier that day. And since that text message, I haven't seen or heard much, if anything, from Louis. But that seems to be the norm. A few nights later, at 9:30 at night, I noticed a commotion outside while I'm watching TV, and I see a silhouette of a pickup truck and two people with flashlights outside through my side window. The truck was at the fence, and the gate that the landlord keeps locked up, it borders my yard. It would be justified to think they were thieves, except my good neighbor is vigilant about such things. The commotion was contained in his yard at that point. I still went to investigate and confront these two firsthand to verify their activity and to exert my position of authority for my yard. I had suspected it was a surprise sneak-in move-in within a few moments of noticing the commotion due to all of the surrounding circumstances. Still, I asked them why they didn't come to the proper entrance, in fact the opposite. They replied about getting stuck in the deep sand. I asked why not go around to the road closer to the entrance anyway. They finally admitted that Louis told them to unload in this spot. I said, this is suspicious and disturbing. They said, yeah, I know him from work. He's pretty crazy. You must have just met him too. I replied, no, I've known him for a while. The female who's moving in said, how do you put up with that? I replied, I learned how to deal with psychopaths. She replied with, that's good to hear. It doesn't take them long to unload the truck, and they disappear for a couple of hours to wait on Louis. This supports the idea it was supposed to be secretive from the property owner. A half hour later, at 10 o'clock in the evening, I get a text full of expletive name calling and asking why I don't talk trash to Louis to his face, inferring that I should quit being a coward and physically confront him. I replied to Louis with a straight answer. I'm afraid you will force a physical altercation and it will end up with one of us seriously harmed or killed. I have stated my diagnosis to his face, in a sense, over text messages, that I determined him to be a psychopath. I very clearly stated that he was to leave me alone until he could serve me with the court-certified eviction. Otherwise, I'd see him next time rent was due. I finished with a text message stating no more harassment from either of us. If he violates this one more time, I will not hesitate to call the police. I still mean it. Next time is the last time I don't legally fight back without restraint. Louis is trying to pull my triggers, but does he realize it's a form of suicide? After getting that text message from Louis, I decided not to get involved at all in the situation that was fixing to unfold across my front yard. I found out later the next morning that my good neighbor's roommate, we'll call him GNR, he went to help this female move her belongings across my yard to another RV unit in the middle of the night. I had thought about doing the same, as in helping her out, but I changed my mind when I figured out she'd started another hate-filled retaliation from Louis towards me. I was a little let down at first, a small part of me wanting her to have dealt with her hardship alone. I accepted that the good people lost out for bad people's gain again. Then I found out Louis's lunacy leaped legendary levels last night. I went next door to my neighbors to figure out what was going on. This is what I found out. While GNR was helping this female move her belongings across my yard to the storage shed and her rental RV unit, Louis's voice came over his muffled and distorted outside loudspeaker, shouting incoherent, unrecognizable speech. Louis had mistaken GNR for me, so we'll pretend it's me in another scenario after finishing what actually happened. GNR couldn't understand the words over the loudspeaker, as no one really can due to its extremely poor reproduction of sound. GNR could still sense what was being felt, but ignored this harassment, as we all do when Louis likes us to listen to his lunacy over his loudspeaker later than legally allowed. Lewis being ignored just made Lewis's problem worse, and then he came outside to do something about it. This is more of what I was told. After Lewis came out all bellowed up and threatening, he was quickly corrected by GNR that this was not Joshua multiple times without success. Lewis claimed disbelief that this was not Joshua, and he approached GNR threateningly and was quickly warned that GNR would properly defend himself. It didn't seem enough to get Lewis to back down, so GNR retreated and went back home immediately. Before I pretend it's me instead of GNR in theory, I'd like to point out the fact that any doubt in Lewis's mind after identity correction was flagged may have totally changed his reaction and therefore the whole scenario. Meaning, minus being able to categorize myself as anyone else, I could have done the exact same thing as GNR, and Lewis, due to lack of identity confidence, may have acted differently. I'll admit, I'd likely not have done the same thing at this point. I think this is what I would have done. In some ways, Lewis would have reacted. When I come out of my door, I'm already armed with OC spray, a knife, and aggressive hand-to-hand skills. And when he gets like this, I carry my concealed firearm. So, he's the opposite of intimidating to me at this point. Lewis is also a felon, so he can't legally own a gun, so I'm a little more hopeful I'll never have to use mine. That being said, I'd stand my ground. I don't think Lewis's seemingly drug-fueled rage would have held him back from an altercation that would have ended with law enforcement after putting him in his place when he ultimately snaps. Well, it didn't happen because that well-known alcoholic female burned her bridge with me earlier. I was pretty smart to catch the red flags and realize she'd been talking behind my back right away. After viewing all of the camera footage, I'm going to assume that Lewis's encounter with GNR was at 12:24. At 12:18, we see GNR walking backwards, pulling a cart and coming back with a flashlight at 12:23, deflecting towards Lewis's RV unit, then walking home 2 minutes later, never to reappear. I'm convinced it's not if Lewis will physically try to harm me, but when.